Hi, Analisa 6 here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to bring you the November 2023 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Libra for sun and rising placements. I am starting to fade. I've done 7 videos and I'm trying to power through all 13 of these videos in one night. It's Halloween. I thought it would be fun. I've been drinking tons of coffee. I should probably go to bed, but let's just do this. I'm having fun. I used to do seances on Halloween and now I just talk about astrology. All right, Libra, it's Scorpio season. We are in the thick of it. Let's talk about where Scorpio is hitting in your chart for the month of November. So we start out every November, with the sun in Scorpio, but we also have Mercury, Mars, and Ceres in Scorpio. And this has been, we've had Mars and Mercury and Ceres here and the sun for a little while. So we've already been in this, but we start out November kind of, further along in this frequency. And the area of the chart that it's been hitting for you is the area that has to do with money. So your relationship to money and also how you make money, and then also your relationship to self-worth around material security, how you build material security for yourself, and also what you feel like you're worthy of when it comes to money and your relationship to resources, essentially on an individual level, on a personal level. And so with that highlighted, with Mars here, there might have been a little bit of conflict or tension around money. So you might, if you ran into some hardships with money, or some kind of learning lessons, that's something you're still going through in November. Mars here, we can experience money coming in quickly but also going quickly. We could also experience some trials and tribulations that force us to spend money on things that we don't necessarily want to spend money on, and that may have the mercurial aspect. It might have us reflecting on the way that we manage that money or those finances. So money management also is a big theme for you at this time, and also maybe reflecting on your relationship to material security and stability. Like, what is your relationship to how you build foundations for yourself in the material world? What is your relationship to what you feel like you are worthy of? Have you been reflecting on inflation, or maybe your spending habits, and are there things about your spending habits that maybe you need to change or be flexible about, or open to seeing things in a different way? Do you need help with your financial goals? Do you need to get some advice on what your financial goals are around investments or savings, things like that? Those are all themes. And Mars brings some tension and some potential obstacles there, but sometimes those obstacles can help push us into making choices that set us up for success later. So if you are kind of going through some tough patches financially, I know, like, my financial habits are not great, but I would say that there's definitely been situations in my life where I was worse off, and being in that worse place helped me gain more reverence for when I'm in a better place, which makes me have, it's almost like having to learn through consequences, right? Where, like, somebody tells you, if you do X, Y, and Z, this might happen. And you're like, yeah, logically, I understand that. But then you still make stupid choices, and you're like, okay, now that I've actually lived through it and experienced the consequences, I'm going to make better choices. And I think that, unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn things the hard way for it to really stick. And so that might be the case for you when it comes to some of your money and how you're managing your money. Also self-worth, your relationship to self-worth can come up through that, where, if like, let's say you're self-employed and that you need to charge more, sometimes that can be a really anxiety inducing or daunting task. What if our clients don't want to pay us more? What if other people don't see us worthy of that? And so sometimes having to acknowledge when things have to change in that way, or even your job, if you want to ask for a raise or a promotion and you're nervous about it, and you're like, I'm not sure if my job is really going to see me as worthy of this. You might be building a case. I actually have a Libra friend that's in this situation right now. Actually, I just realized she really wants to get a raise at her job, and she deserves one. I think that she's very much building a case to her employer of why she deserves one. And what's kind of interesting about this, now that I'm thinking about it, because we were just having this conversation the other day, and she's actually hiring a coach that helps you build that case and teaches you how to communicate effectively to your employer, to basically tell them like, here's why I think I'm worthy of this raise, and to communicate it in a way that's professional and, to bring up the points that are valid and kind of the data and the statistics and all of that stuff, which I thought was really cool that she was doing that. So she's a Libra, and I was not saying all that stuff with her in mind until I started saying it. Was like, oh, wait a minute, my Libra friend, we were just talking about her doing this. So very on brand, for a Libra dominant person, whether you're sun or rising, to acknowledge your self-worth. And, do you need to ask for a raise, whether you're self-employed or working at a company? Do you need to change your career if your job is unable to support you in the way that you feel like you deserve, or that you're, entitled to? And maybe if you're struggling, part of that work is acknowledging, your own narrative in your mind of what you think you're worthy of. Sometimes if we've been used to so little, we have a hard time imagining a lot more. And it isn't until we're living, abundantly or in a lot more that we're like, wow, I used to have such low self-worth. And I think that sometimes we have to prove that worthiness too. Sometimes other people don't see our worth until we prove it. I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations where I'm in demand and I have wait lists and people are willing to pay me a lot of money. And then I change or pivot what I'm doing and I have to start completely over, and it sucks because I feel like I have to earn and prove my worthiness again. And so sometimes, I found myself lowering my prices or my rates when I've been self-employed, just so that I have business coming in, knowing my worth though, knowing that I'm worth more. And then I'll have kind of that anxiety when I start to raise my rates, like, oh, but what if other people don't see my worthiness? And so a lot of business coaching will tell you to start out with high rates because of inflation, and, so that you're not chasing, like a rate that you're making way low what you're able to sustain. But proving that to other people, depending on the demographic of where you live, can sometimes be really challenging too. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting kind of situation to be in when you're self-employed, but the same thing happens at your job. Like I have definitely worked for other people where I'm not making what I deserve to be making, and I'm working way beyond what I should be working for how much I'm making. But I think that it takes a lot of boundaries and growth internally to really advocate for that and know what not to say yes to if you're not, getting paid for that labor. So that's a big theme for Libra, starting out November. We also start out the month of November with Venus finishing up her time in Virgo. So Venus has been in Virgo throughout October, and she's finishing up for the first week of November. And the area that's been hitting for the Libra horoscope is the area that has to do with the subconscious and our relationship to our internal world, as well as how we're connected to our spiritual life. And so Venus here brings a lot of opportunity to do a lot of inner work and reflect on ways that we need to grow internally and spiritually, and also nurturing and nourishing ourselves internally and spiritually. And then she's going to be moving into Libra, where she rules Libra, and she's going to be there for the rest of November. And so she's going to be moving out of that subconscious area and into the area that has to do with identity and the self. And this is a really positive time for the Libra individual to embrace self-love and autonomy and anything that kind of promotes personal fulfillment and confidence, and your relationship to yourself. It's very supported and enhanced. So this is a really positive time for you for the rest of the month, having Venus, your ruler, here in this area of the horoscope. Shortly after Venus enters Libra, Mercury is going to leave Scorpio and enter Sagittarius, and enter the area of the chart that has to do with communication. And this is actually so Sagittarius makes a harmonious aspect to Libra. And so Mercury here, even though Mercury is in detriment and it's not the most comfortable place for Mercury, it does actually enhance your ability to expand and grow beyond previous beliefs or perspectives. And so one of the things that's going to be happening for the Libra individual, is that whatever your previous value system or belief system has been, you're either going to go through a period over November where you're completely reevaluating it and maybe seeing that some of the past values or belief systems you've had are no longer resonating for you anymore, and that you're moving into a new territory with that stuff. Or you might actually kind of do something where you dig in more to what your values and belief systems are, but you now expand upon it. And maybe, let's say, like, here's an example. I'm vegan, so I feel like I have a lot of examples that have to do with animal rights and veganism. And one of the things about being a vegan that sometimes is hard is when non-vegan people talk about animal rights or what they perceive as advocating for animals, because they're not necessarily talking about all animals, right? Like, a lot of non-vegans are just talking about the animals that they care about. So a lot of times non-vegans, dogs and cats, and then usually wild exotic animals. But a lot of times the animals that are native to the United States don't really get cared about that much, unless it's like wild horses or horses in general. But farm animals don't usually fall into that category for non-vegans. And some wildlife animals don't fall into that category for non-vegans because they're a nuisance, right? Or a pest. And so the thing that, is hard sometimes when you're going through values and belief system reflections is finding your own hypocrisy in your values or your beliefs. And when you start to evolve or elevate in terms of your perspective or how you resonate with things, sometimes those hypocrisies start to make themselves more known to yourself. And they start, like, there's some hypocrisies that we sometimes are comfortable living with, and then there's sometimes can get to this point where certain things happen internally where we feel messy or messed up for having that hypocrisy. And that's how I became vegan. Was my value system was that of a vegan, but when I wasn't vegan, there was a 5-year period where I wasn't vegan. So like, I went vegan and then I quit being vegan, and then there was this period where I couldn't reconcile my own internal hypocrisy, where I was like, well, I believe in veganism, but I'm not a vegan, and I can't reconcile that anymore. Like, it just doesn't sit right with me anymore. And I know not everyone watching this is going to feel the same way or be vegan, and I'm not trying to convince you to be vegan, but I'm just saying that, like, my husband's an example of that. Like, he's somebody that definitely believes in veganism and thinks that that's a good value system, but he doesn't necessarily feel the need to follow that value system. He's not vegan. And so he knows that there's a hypocrisy to that, and he supports my veganism. But for me, like, there was a point in my life where I couldn't live with that hypocrisy. Like, I had to become a vegan in order to feel in alignment with my beliefs. For some people, that could be Christianity. There's a lot of people that are raised Christian and then they stop going to church, but maybe they still identify with Christianity. And so then later in life, they return back to the church. And maybe that's not necessarily Christianity, but it could be something else. There's a lot of things like that in life where sometimes we feel internally that there's a path we need to be walking, and something happens in life that makes us realize we're not walking the path we feel we're meant to, and that we need to do a course correct in order to get on that path that we feel like we're meant to be walking. And I think Mercury in Sagittarius is going to do that for a lot of people, but especially for Libra in the area of communication and also perspective and information and learning and value systems, right? So yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy, like, one of my favorites is always Thanksgiving, because so many people now hate Thanksgiving and yet still celebrate it. And so that's a hypocrisy, right? So many things like that. And it's different for everybody. I have my own hypocrisies that I live in, that I know I'm living in, because, I can only walk a line so much in certain areas of my life. Like, I bought a car with leather seats, and my current car does not have leather seats, but that was kind of one of those things where at the time there was like, I wanted this car and it just happened to have leather seats. I don't wear leather. I don't have leather in my life. I'm a vegan with no leather. And I remember my husband being like, you have leather seats. And I'm like, I know. And the thing is it was really nice because I walked dogs and worked with dogs, and it was so much easier to clean than when I had fabric seats. And even though I had seat covers in my fabric seat car, it was still just a nightmare the way that the hair embedded in them. So there was kind of this part of me that was like, this is not a part of my value system to have leather seats, but at the same time, it's really nice for my job, and it's making cleaning my car with the animals I work with so much easier. So that was a hypocrisy, right? And now I'm really glad that I have a car that does not have leather seats. I don't like my car, but I'm glad that I don't have leather seats in it because that's more in alignment with my values. So anyways, that's just something that might come up. And Sagittarius energy is a really dominant theme in November because we do enter Sagittarius season on the 23rd. So the sun is going to move into Sagittarius and highlight communication, values, beliefs, perspectives, all of that stuff. And then Mars is going to enter Sagittarius right after that on the 24th. And Mars here with Mercury and with the sun makes your communication a lot more reactive and hot. You also are likely to get on some soapboxes about what you're thinking and feeling and believing. And you got to be mindful. This is a check yourself before you wreck yourself type of thing. Mercury in Sagittarius is not in its home place there. It's not, it's in detriment. And so foot in the mouth, saying the wrong thing, talking too much and too loudly, being overly self-righteous, thinking you know more than you do, and needing to eat some humble pie. Those are all themes this month for Libra. I love my Libras, but you guys can definitely, in a similar way as Sagittarius, think that you know everything just as much as Sagittarius people do that. You also can come off like you think that you're intellectually superior in a way that is extremely offensive. And the thing that's hard about it is that Libras are smart people. I feel like I have so many Libra dominant people in my life that are very smart and very talented and should be confident in that. But it doesn't mean that you're superior to the person sitting next to you who's also very talented, also very gifted, also very knowledgeable. And needing to be the most knowledgeable, revered person in the room is such a weird aspiration. And, as a Sagittarius rising person, I have definitely been around a lot of Sagittarius dominant people that are like that as well. I can be a know-it-all for sure. I think the difference with Sagittarius is that we're not as, we're more into sharing that in a way where people can be equals. Whereas I think Libra definitely wants to be a little bit more on the pedestal. There's more of this, I want to be on the top with a Libra. And I know Sagittarius dominant people that are like that too. So I'm not saying that it's not there, but I think the Libra Sag combo that's happening for you this month, Libra, is risky because you might piss some people off and you might have to really take it down a few notches. On the flip side, if you're a Libra that tends to be more humble and people pleasing and has a hard time owning who you are or having confidence or advocating for yourself, then maybe the Sagittarius energy is actually really promoting you to step into more of a leadership position and own your shit, own who you are, own your knowledge. I think that it's dependent on where you're at in that journey, But I think that Mercury and Sagittarius usually, especially in this placement where it's hitting for you, is let's tone it down a little bit. So yeah, it's just something to be mindful with. And I think all of us need to work on that with Mercury and Sagittarius transit. But yeah, it's hitting Libra especially. So yeah, just try to slow your roll a little bit, maybe. Let's talk about our moon. So we have a new moon on November 13th in Scorpio. And so that's happening in that area of finances and money. So new moons are all about setting intentions towards things that we want to call in and manifest. So whatever you've been working out financially, this is a great time to set intentions towards what you want to call in when it comes to your money situation. Do some money magic on that new moon on November 13th. November 27th is going to be our full moon, and that's happening at 4 degrees of Gemini. And so this is going to be making the moon will trine Libra, make a harmonious trine to Libra. What did I just do? Oh, there we go. So we're going to have the sun in Sagittarius that's highlighting that area of communication for you. And then the moon's going to be in the opposite place that has to do with values and belief systems. So around the 27th, when we're at that end of the month where I was going into my tangent about values, beliefs, hypocrisy, perspective, all of that kind of stuff. This full moon really brings all of that up to the surface. And we're reflecting on that. Like, what is my value system? What is my belief system? What is my spiritual path? Am I living in alignment with the things that I think and feel? Do I need to get out of town and gain some different perspective on my life? Do I need to go on a trip and gain some different perspective and hear some different words of wisdom from somebody else and get out of my own funk and my own head and all of that? That's a huge theme. Full moons are a time for manifesting and calling things in, and also letting go and releasing. So while, you might be in a place where there might be certain aspects of your life that you want to dig your heels into deeper, you might also feel like some of the previous things that you were holding on to, you're ready to shed when it comes to what you think. So again, like getting back into, walking the walk versus just talking it. It's time to kind of put your money where your mouth is, like if you genuinely feel passionately about certain things in your life, or you definitely want to make certain changes based off of your values, this is the time to set intentions towards calling that in. If there's certain habits that you have that are not in alignment with the life that you want for yourself, this is the time to really try to, transmute and let go maybe some of those habits. One of my least favorite, like this is a pet peeve of mine with just anybody, is hearing somebody talk about things that they want to change in their life over and over and over again and not actually taking the action to do it. And I think what happens a lot of times for people is that life eventually will push you in a direction. So why not take action to make that direction more of what you wanted instead of letting life push you around, right? Easier said than done, because sometimes we get stuck or stagnant and it's hard for us to see that road. But I think that if we're not consciously taking action in our lives, we're not going to call in or manifest or release and let go the things that we really want to. So this is one that is really common with a lot of people, are health goals. And I think that as somebody with chronic health issues, that's been a harder one for me, because I worked so hard on myself to get my health and my fitness to a certain place that I was really happy with. And then I started having health issues, which I thought was not a possibility with how much I was doing to mitigate that. And it happened anyways. And so now it's really hard for me to do certain things physically, even though my diet's really good. It's like I can't really maintain the level of fitness that I used to be able to maintain with my health problems. And that's really frustrating, because I got out of that headspace where I was just active and fit, and I'm like, no, why did that get taken away from me? So one of the things that really annoys me now is when I see people that are totally able-bodied, totally healthy, and not having any of those problems that I'm having, not take advantage of their mobility and their ability to do those things, because it's short-lived. At some point we all slow down, at some point we age and things kind of move in a different direction. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. And I think that the Gemini Sagittarius axis is really influential and powerful for us moving into more directions in life that we want, especially like things like sobriety. Like that's another thing where I don't have as much of a pet peeve with people that have a hard time with sobriety, in the sense that I know how hard it is. And I'm an addict, and I know how hard it is to get sober and to stay sober. So I have a lot more compassion towards the difficulty of that. But I think that Gemini Sagittarius transits are really good at, especially Sagittarius and Pisces transits are really good at helping us find deeper meaning to get sober or to make lifestyle changes that are good for us. And so that might also be something that comes up for Libra dominant people. If you have substance abuse issues, is feeling more motivated to maybe make some changes in that direction, or get some help too, if you feel like you're not in alignment with what you need in that way. Those are all just random things. It might not resonate for you. You might have other areas of your life that you're feeling called to change. Those are just examples that might come up. Because it's happening in the 9th and the 3rd house, where these things are, it's abstract. It really could be so many different things for different people. It's really a personal kind of journey in terms of how that's manifesting for you. On a whole, though, I would say stay really open-minded, because you're at risk of the foot in the mouth and eating humble pie later if you try to assert or stay on a high horse of self-righteousness too much with what you think you know. The universe loves to knock us down and remind us what we don't know. So just remember that. That's my Libra guidance for you this month. All right, Libra, well, feel free to like and subscribe if you want to get notified in the future when I do these. I post these videos every month. You can find me at theladyofleisure.com and thesobercurator.com. And I wish you the best of luck for November. If you want a deeper synopsis on all of the transits of the day for the month of November, I do the November astrology forecast that is at the top of this playlist, where I give a more general and broader interpretation of the month that we have going on. All right, I will talk to you guys next month.